For those of you who have been following my videos, you know I'm working on a RCA television from 1952, but I need to take a break from it. I mean, after a while you get so steeped and you lose track of other things that need to be done as well. So I'm going to take a break from it, clear my mind a little bit, and go back at it in a few days. Meanwhile, I need to get this Atwater Kent speaker disassembled and checked out. And I know a lot of you have been waiting for me to do this, my son included, who owns this thing. Anyway, this speaker is in two pieces, the back and the front, and they're both held together with 4 screws. There's one there, one on the bottom down here, and 2 more on the other side, same places. And the way this thing was written up on how to disassemble it was, you take a hammer, you put a piece of cloth over the top, beat this thing with a hammer it down with a hammer, and tap it, and then while you're doing that, you're supposed to pull this front off, and it's supposed to separate because it's very difficult. Well, that's not going to happen. I'm going to do my very best not to hit on this thing with any hammer, whether it's got a cloth or not, even if it's a rubber hammer or a leather mallet or whatever. I'm going to try not to do that. However, I've still got to do this. Is an extremely tight fit, very well made. And it's developed rust over the years. There's corrosion under there. You can bet where the 2 pieces come together. So what I need to do is somehow loosen that up before I attempt to separate the 2 pieces. And the method I came up with, or the idea I came up with, was to use some liquid wrench. Just spray a little bit. Take the old speaker, set it flat like so. Let me get it down here. I'm going to set it flat like so, and then I'm going to take a little bit of that liquid wrench and put it around that seam all the way around there, and just let it set for quite a while. And that hopefully will loosen up some of the rust and corrosion that is surely in there. Then I'll go ahead and remove the screws and see if that helps. If it doesn't, then we'll have to try a different idea. So stand by to stand by. Now, as you go around this thing, incidentally, this this liquid wrench, it comes without these red straws. I don't like that at all. I do not like that. I guess it was not designed for this kind of work, so they don't need to. They feel they don't need to put red straws in there, but I got news for them. They should include it. Anyway, make sure as you go that you don't go crazy with it. A lot of it's going to get it's going to get quite a bit. You just got to kind of do one of these numbers like I'm doing right here. Just barely hold the button down. Oop, there goes the straw. Anyway, and then wipe up the excess right away. Don't let it hang around too long. Okay, you just want to get it down in that seam right there. Let me get the old straw put back in here, and we'll finish it up. Alright, straw's back in. That straw, by the way, came from a WD-40 can. We'll just go ahead and do that number. Alright. Then we take our old extra rag and just kind of wipe the excess off. Just let it set like that. Now I'll have to tip it up just a little bit to get any excess off the front edge also. But I want to leave it like this for quite a while. Right now it's time for me to head out the door here and go to work. So what I'm going to do is let that sit like that on my workbench all while I'm at work. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to give it another shot. I'm going to really take my time on separating this thing. I don't want any damage to happen to that front grille. Incidentally, that front grille is all one piece. It's stamped out of a single piece of metal. This is not something that's been fastened to the front edge. This is all one piece of metal. It's pretty strong metal too, but I don't want to take a chance on messing it up and bending it or whatever. And of course we don't want to get any penetrating oil in there where the speaker cone is. And once we get this front off, I'll show you how to remove that speaker cone. That's going to be cool. And then what's behind it's really neat. It's in a little bag, believe it or not. Cloth bag. She has soaked all night long, and now I'm going to go ahead and take the screws out, and they came real loose. They got really loose on this thing, and that old penetrating oil really helped. I didn't want to snap off these screws or strip these heads out, and boy, I'll tell you, it just loosened it up really nice. So what I'm going to do now, that looks like dust along there, don't it? But it's not, it's just a glare. Alright, I'm going to take the other two screws out, and then I'm going to give it one more shot of penetrating oil all the way around. Now that the screws are loose, that lip has come loose just a little bit. More room to put penetrating oil down in. Once again, now the key to this is to not go crazy with the penetrating oil. You're going to have to, you'll get a little bit there. Once you get it started, then you just kind of put a bead along there. I took a very thin screwdriver of mine. It's well made. It's got really good metal in it. At first I tried the Allen wrench trick, and it didn't work, but I found that if I took this little tiny screwdriver and just kind of stuck it into the hole where the screw went, down in the metal between the two metals, I don't want to get near that screw hole, mess up those threads, and just kind of tap it right here. I've got this thing supported on a piece of wood, so I have some space underneath here. You don't want any part of this frame to be on the wood, just the leg. And then you can see it's beginning to separate real good here. Real good. So I should have it off in a few minutes just by going back and forth between the two. Separating real nice now. Alright, I ultimately wound up taking an Allen wrench toward the end here, and I stuck it in the long end first. I stuck it in right there to where it would just barely catch on the edge of that metal, and then I tapped with the hammer along this right here, along the long part of the Allen wrench, and just tapped it down, tap, 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 and she popped right loose. Look at there. Came out like a big dog. So let's flip it over and see what we got. Alright, you got her all loose. Look at there. Came right off just as slick as can be. And no damage to anything at all. I am so happy about this. A little penetrating oil was all it took. Get down in there. See where the penetrating oil was down in there? Helps a lot. Helps a lot. Just don't get it all over the cone or anything. You don't want it on the cone. Now this cone has a felt, nice sewed on, stitched on with a sewing machine. How about that? All the way around. Nice little felt edge. Now what we've got to do, now this cone is attached to this thing right here. This is just a V thing that comes out, and the cone comes up, and the reed comes up through the center. And this thing here is just attached to it with a screw right here, a little tiny screw. So what I've got to do is, I read about if you try to take that nut off that screw without trying to pick the paint away first, you're going to have problems. You'll wind up stripping that nut. So if you pick away the paint all the way around, I have a little like dental pick set. I'm going to pick away that paint all the way around that nut as much as I can. Then go ahead, and they say to use an ignition wrench set. Well, I have one, but I don't know if the ignition wrench is quite that small, but we'll find out. Right now we got to pick away that paint. Well, my smallest ignition wrench, it's 1/4 of an inch, is too big. So we'll have to try something else. But first, we're going to take one of these picks out of this 6-piece pick set I got at I got this at Harbor Freight. And I'll tell you what, that was a really good buy, because you got all different shapes on each end. Man, this thing has come in handy many times, especially when I was working on veneer. Alright, I've picked all the paint away along the base of that nut on the right hand side. You just got to take your time doing it. You don't want to puncture the cone. It's a pretty tough cone. That's pretty strong stuff. And once you get all that paint out of there, now we need to get some penetrating oil on there and let it set for a while. But you can't just take your can of penetrating oil and spray it. So how do you get penetrating oil on that nut? Well, you use a Q-tip. Just kind of give it a little spray down there, like so. Let it soak in a little bit, and then kind of just dab it around. Just kind of dab it around there like that. Let her soak. Might want to put a little more on there. Alright, we got a little bit more on there now. Now we'll go ahead and let it soak for a while, and that too will help it come loose. While we're waiting for the penetrating oil to take effect, you'll notice, like I told you before, you have a V that comes out that's fastened to the cone itself. This strip right here is fastened to this side with that rivet, and there's another rivet over there that fastens to this side. Now in the center coming out is the reed. That's what vibrates. It vibrates from the rear, and I'll show you that. It's inside usually a blue bag. And once this vibrates, it vibrates both of these side strips, which in turn vibrates the entire cone. This cone is not attached. This is a free-floating cone. It's not attached to anything. That's why they have a nice piece of felt sewed around it. I understand this had something to do with patent violations. This is what Atwater came up with to keep from infringing on someone's patent on how they made the speaker cone. I don't know if that's all that true or not. But the vibrating thing here is this reed in the center. That's what we'll be concentrating on. It goes back into a vibrating affair toward the rear. After I put the penetrating oil on that nut, I just decided to go downtown, do a little shopping. So it's been sitting, soaking for about 3 hours now. So it's still pretty tight, but I do have all the paint removed, and it has been soaking, so there really should be no problem getting it loose. And I'm going to use this pair of needle nose to just kind of crack it loose. If I get down, it takes a 3/16 socket, but I can't get the wrench down in there, the ratchet, and I'm afraid I might damage the cone. So what I might, right here. So what I want to do is just kind of see if I can't get it to come loose. Just kind of, if you do this, you want to have a pair of needle noses that's got some really sharp teeth. Nothing that's all wore down, been in your toolbox for the last 65 years. Get a nice fresh set if you're going to do it on something like this. A very valuable speaker. Alright, let's get this baby on there. I got a good tight grip. There she goes. She came loose. Now I'll stick my little socket on there and see if I can get it the rest of the way. Well, something's happening. Yeah, she's moving. How about that? See how easy that was? Piece of cake. This stuff is so easy. Alright, now you can see the little nut. The little nut and bolt is loose right there. So I'll go ahead and take that off. Well, there it is. Just a little nut. It's a little nut and a little bolt is all it is. 3/16 of an inch nut on that. Alright, now if everything goes the way I say it goes, this whole speaker should come right off now. Well, it looks like it might be a two-hand effort. Let me see what I can do here. Alright, I got her loose. Here we go. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. Now, for safekeeping, I'm going to be putting this in a cardboard box. And there it is. I'm not going to put any, none of those ghost turds in there, or none of that styrofoam chunks and stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and just close it up. I don't want anything to be pressing against that cardboard cone. I don't, it feels pretty strong and it feels pretty tough, but I don't want to take any chances, especially around this the crinkled center right here. So that's what we've got, and here's the cloth bag I was telling you about. Boy, is that thing hardened up over the years. Wow. Anyway, these are the speaker wires that come in. They come in through that little hole down there, and they go up there and they attach to what's inside this bag. Remember, this is your vibrating reed. And what I need to do is pull this speaker wire all the way through, and then remove these two nuts, and that mechanism will come right out of there. And then we'll see what's inside. I placed the 4 screws that held the cover on in a plastic sandwich bag, and anything else that falls out of there I go ahead and put it there too, except for this this toothpick. I don't need a toothpick. Get rid of it. Okay, but this tiny little screw, now that's something special. I could stick it in this bag right here along with the rest of the screws, but if this thing ever got a hole in it, it'd be easy to replace these 4 screws here. But trying to replace something that small would be kind of tough. So what I'm going to do is place that in a separate bag of its own, like so. And then I'm going to seal it up and place it inside this other bag. That way, even if a hole gets accidentally torn in this bag, this one will be safe. In order to remove this whole mechanism with the bag and everything, we have to take these 2 nuts on the back off. They're 1/2 inch size, at least on this speaker. Now keep in mind there may be differences in some of the other speakers. This is the E speaker, model E. So we're going to go ahead and easy does it. You want to cut them loose a little bit at a time. We don't need to break off any studs here, you know, that's holding this mess on. Just like that. Let me go ahead. It'll take two hands. I don't want it to fall off the front. So, and there it is. And there it is. This is a waterproof, some kind of a, like an oilcloth bag. Let me see if I can, I guess before I do anything I have to remove these two nuts here and remove these wires. And then I'll go ahead and open the bag and see if I can get it out without damaging anything. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and untie the neck of the bag. This is like exciting. I mean, this thing was tied in there in 1927. And I'm opening it up in 2012. I mean, that's incredible when you think about it. Look at there, it's fastened to the rear. I think you can't even get it loose. Maybe, yeah, that's part of the bag. And now I have to pull up these off the top. Let me go ahead. I'll separate all this and then take it out of the bag and let you see it. What you see down in there is the vibrating mechanism. All metal. Let's get it out of there. Alright, that wasn't so easy. When you're slipping it out, these two nuts come out of these two holes real easy. But on the other side, where that reed was, it wants to, this reed right here, it wants to catch on everything as it comes out of the bag. So you're really going to have to sit down, take your time, move the cloth around. Easy does it here, easy does it there. Take your time and you'll get it out of there all in one piece without tearing up the bag. And in the center we have a little electromagnet. The electromagnet vibrates via the signal coming into it, and then in turn causes this reed to vibrate, and it makes the speaker cone vibrate. Kind of cool, huh? Just a little metal piece of flat metal called a reed, I guess. Let's see what I can do about making this better now. I don't, you know, my son has been thinking about getting this thing painted like that blue colored one they did on American Restorations. He's thinking about contacting Rick out there, Rick's Restoration. I don't know what it's called. Like I said, I don't watch much TV. And he wants to maybe send it out there and get it painted like that, which means I'll have to take off these cloth air vents. And that's what they are. They're just there for air. And if that's the case, we may have a real problem because these things are really on there. I think they were pressure fitted with these rings, but I don't know. We'll wait and see what he decides. Meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up right here. I'm going to study this a little bit more. I'm going to set up a little experiment for you with that, which will be in the next video. And I appreciate you hanging in there, and I hope you learned a little something about these speakers, those of you who are interested. And we'll see you next time. This is John. One more thing. Put your bag in a plastic bag and put the vibrating mechanism, the electromagnet, also in a plastic bag. Don't just leave them laying around. Very valuable items with respect to this speaker.